What would you do if your husband went on your honeymoon, but with his assistant instead of you? The next day, he received something that changed his life forever. Stay with me, because this story will shock you, touch your heart, and leave you with a lesson you will never forget. Asterisk, asterisk, before we dive into this incredible story, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our powerful and life-changing content. Asterisk, my husband went on his honeymoon with his assistant. The next day, he received a divorce agreement. I remember the exact moment when the truth struck me. The house was silent. The air carried the faint scent of roses, a reminder of the flowers I had once arranged for our wedding anniversaries. My heart raced as I held my phone, scrolling through the images I never expected to see. There he was, my husband, dressed in the same smile he once reserved for me. But this time, his arm was around his assistant standing by the seaside. That the caption read, "Our honeymoon begins." A sharp pain spread through my chest. The walls around me felt closer, pressing, suffocating, the room blurred, tears burning my eyes. Every sound in the world seemed muted, except for the pounding of my heart. I had trusted him. I had given him every piece of my soul, only to find myself betrayed in the most humiliating way. But in the middle of my grief, I found a strange clarity. I picked up a pen. The paper in front of me trembled under my hand. Yet my resolve grew steadier with each word. The divorce agreement. The lines felt heavy, but they also felt freeing. My hand did not hesitate. My signature sealed not just an end, but the beginning of something new. The next morning, while he was still holding hands with another woman across the ocean, his phone lit up with my message. Attached was the document that would break the chains of my pain. For the first time in a long while, I breathed deeply. The air was fresh, crisp, almost sweet. I stepped outside, letting the sun touch my face. The world had not ended. It was only beginning. A kind neighbor, Mrs. Lane, noticed my pale face as I passed her garden. She gently pressed a warm loaf of bread into my hands. Her eyes spoke what words did not. "You are not alone." That evening, my best friend arrived with 2 mugs of tea. She sat quietly beside me. No judgment, no questions, only presence. And in that silence, I felt a hand holding mine. Invisible but strong, the hand of life guiding me forward. Every day that followed was not easy. The nights were long, filled with memories I wished I could erase. But in each dawn, I discovered fragments of myself that I thought I had lost. I began painting again. Colors flowed where pain once lingered. I started volunteering at a shelter, where strangers with broken hearts taught me that healing is possible when we lift each other. And slowly, very slowly, my wounds became scars. Scars that no longer hurt, but reminded me of the strength hidden inside me. One day, as I stood by the shore, the same kind of shore where his betrayal began, I felt no bitterness, only gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to start again. Gratitude for the kindness of people who showed me love when I thought I was unworthy. Gratitude for the lesson that betrayal does not define me, but resilience does. One afternoon, as I was painting by the shore, the waves humming softly, a shadow fell across my canvas. A man's voice, warm and curious, asked, "Do you always paint with so much soul?" I looked up. He stood with gentle eyes, holding a book in his hand. His smile not heavy with charm, but light with kindness. His name was Daniel. He was a traveler passing through the town, seeking stories in quiet places. We spoke first of colors, then of books, then of dreams we had once buried deep inside us. For the first time in years, I laughed. It was not the forced laugh I had given my husband in the last months of our marriage. It was pure. It was free. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel returned to the shore again and again, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with nothing, but stories. Always with sincerity. He never asked about my past at first, but when he finally did, he listened, not to judge, not to pity, But to understand when I spoke of betrayal, his eyes softened, and his silence was louder than any words. I realized then that kindness can heal places that love once wounded. And slowly, I allowed myself to trust again. He painted beside me one evening, his strokes clumsy but full of joy. I laughed until my sides hurt, watching the sun dip into the horizon for the first time. The future did not feel frightening. It felt like a canvas unfinished, open, ready for new colors. One evening, Daniel and I sat by the sea with a blanket wrapped around us. The breeze carried the scent of salt and wildflowers, and the moon stretched its silver light across the water. He turned to me, his voice steady yet tender. "You are stronger than you know," he said. Those words reached the quietest corners of my heart. I had been called weak, foolish, even naive by the man I once loved. But Daniel saw me as more than my scars. He saw me as someone who had endured, who had rebuilt herself from ashes. I looked at him, searching for any shadow of insincerity. But there was none. His gaze was open, steady, filled with warmth I had not known for so long. I realized then that the universe sometimes breaks us, only to lead us to those who can piece us together with patience. From that night on, Daniel became more than just a traveler who wandered into my life. He became my companion in silence, my laughter on lonely days, my anchor in the storms of memory. Every morning felt lighter. Every sunset felt like a promise. And though my past was still a part of me, it no longer defined me. It became a story I had survived, and survival, I learned, was its own kind of victory. Months turned into a year, and life with Daniel blossomed in ways I never imagined. We opened a small cafe together by the shore, where travelers and locals came not only for coffee, but also for comfort. The walls were painted with soft colors, and every corner carried the fragrance of fresh bread and wild roses. Daniel handled the books with his calm precision, while I greeted customers with warmth that flowed naturally from my healed heart. People began to tell us their stories. Some spoke of broken marriages. Others whispered about dreams they were too afraid to chase, and we listened, because we knew how much listening mattered. One evening, as we closed the cafe, Daniel handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a simple ring, delicate yet strong, like the love that had grown between us. He did not kneel, nor did he make a grand speech. Instead, he looked into my eyes and said, "You are my home." Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from the beauty of finally being seen. I said yes, not because I needed saving, but because I had already saved myself and now was ready to share my life with someone who honored that strength. Our wedding was small, under the same sky that had once witnessed my sorrow. But this time, the stars felt like blessings and the wind felt like joy. And as I held Daniel's hand, I knew the past was not a chain but a lesson that love, when true never diminishes who you are, it amplifies your light. Our days in the cafe grew into seasons, and with each season our bond deepened. In spring, we planted flowers outside the windows, their colors bursting like promises of new beginnings. In summer, children ran through the door with sandy feet, laughing as they ordered sweet pastries. In autumn, the air smelled of cinnamon, and elderly couples lingered, holding hands as if time itself had slowed for them. And in winter, the cafe glowed with warmth, drawing in souls who sought shelter not only from the cold outside, but from the coldness of life. Daniel and I often sat together after closing, sipping tea, reflecting on how far we had come. I told him once, "This cafe is more than walls and tables. It is proof that broken hearts can build beautiful things." He nodded, his hand covering mine with quiet certainty. One night, as the snow fell softly, a young woman entered. Her eyes were red from tears, her hands trembling as she clutched a small suitcase. She looked lost in the way I had once felt. Without hesitation, I offered her a seat, a warm drink, and most importantly, my daughter's story poured out betrayal, disappointment, and the heavy weight of being underestimated. And as I listened, I realized life had come full circle. I was now the one giving the comfort I once so desperately needed. Daniel watched quietly, his gaze filled with pride, for he knew, as I did, that healing was not just about finding happiness for ourselves, was about helping others find theirs too. The cafe became more than a business. It became a sanctuary, a place where pain transformed into hope, where endings became beginnings, and every person who walked through our doors carried a piece of that light forward into the world. Years passed and the little cafe that once felt like a fragile dream became the heartbeat of our town. Travelers from distant cities stopped by, drawn not only by the aroma of fresh bread and roasted coffee, but by the warmth that lingered in the air. People said there was something magical about the place, as if every cup carried comfort, every corner held a story, and every smile offered a second chance. Daniel and I worked side by side, building not just a business but a life woven from kindness, resilience, and shared purpose. We learned to read each other's silences, celebrate each other's triumphs, and hold space for each other's scars. Our love, once unexpected, grew deeper than either of us had known love could grow. One afternoon, as I arranged fresh flowers on the tables, Daniel approached with a look I had not seen before, a quiet nervousness wrapped in sincerity. He held a small velvet box in his hand. "My heart has healed beside you," he said softly, "and every piece of my life makes sense when you are in it. Will you walk the rest of this journey with me, not just as a partner in the cafe, but as my wife?" Tears filled my eyes, not because I had dreamed of this moment, but because I had stopped needing it to feel whole. "Yes," I whispered, my voice trembling with joy. "Yes, I will." The wedding was simple and beautiful, held right there in the cafe under the twinkling lights we had hung years before. The same walls that had witnessed my brokenness now echoed with laughter, music, and promises. Friends, strangers, and even people whose lives we had quietly touched over the years came to celebrate. And somewhere in the back of the room, I noticed the young woman who had once entered our cafe in tears, now smiling with someone who held her hand with tenderness. It was in that moment I understood healing does not erase the past, it transforms it into something that guides us forward. I looked around at the faces filled with warmth and love, and I felt a profound gratitude for the pain that once brought me to my knees. Without it, I might never have built this life. Without it, I might never have discovered the strength that lived quietly inside me. And without it, I might never have learned that the end of one chapter is often the beginning of the most beautiful one of all. After the wedding, life unfolded like a gentle melody. Each morning, the cafe doors opened to laughter, conversations, and the sweet smell of cinnamon rolls drifting into the street. Children grew up, playing in the corner near the bookshelf we had filled with stories of hope, while older couples sat by the window, holding hands as if time had never touched them. Daniel and I found joy in the small things, kneading dough together, sharing stolen kisses between busy hours, and walking home under the glow of lanterns when the cafe lights finally dimmed. But what touched me most were the people who came not only for coffee, but for comfort. They shared their burdens, their joys, and their secrets. And somehow, our little cafe became more than a place to eat or drink. It became a sanctuary, a reminder that no one is ever truly alone. Sometimes I would catch Daniel watching me across the room, his eyes soft, filled with the same quiet admiration he had carried from the very beginning. He often said, "You gave me more than love. You gave me a purpose." I would smile back, knowing deep in my heart that we had given each other the greatest gift of all, a second chance. And so what began as heartbreak ended in a life filled with meaning. The betrayal that once broke me became the turning point that guided me toward strength, forgiveness, and a love that was real. I learned that pain can either destroy us or shape us into something stronger. It is not the ending of a chapter that defines us, but the courage to begin again. Life has a way of taking away what is false, only to replace it with what is true. My story is proof that even in the darkest moments, light is waiting to be found. The moral is simple. Never let betrayal define your worth. Your value does not lie in how others treat you, but in how you rise after being broken. Love, kindness, and faith will always rebuild what was lost. And remember, every ending is only the beginning of something far more beautiful. Would you like me to also craft a short and powerful moral takeaway line? Like a one-liner quote that you can place at the very end of your YouTube video for extra impact? Asterisk, asterisk, thank you for listening to this heartfelt tale. If it touched you, share it. Leave a comment below and remind someone you are never alone.